Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Coronavirus cases are rising in nearly half of U.S. states. That's according to an Associated Press analysis. This as restrictions and lockdowns continue to be eased. Texas and Florida are among several states seeing their highest numbers of new cases since the pandemic began. Officials in Houston say the area is nearing a disaster and they may need to use a sports stadium as a temporary hospital because of a record rise in infections. CBS News correspondent Danya Backus has more tonight.
This is essentially a statewide yellow light.
Oregon is putting a 7-day pause on plans to further lift coronavirus restrictions.
The noticeable increase in COVID-19 infections in Oregon over the past week is certainly cause for concern.
Oregon and other states, including Texas, Florida, and the Carolinas, are reporting spikes in new cases.
I think as a state we have taken important steps to slow the virus, but those numbers and trends are sobering.
14 states have seen a rise in hospitalization since Memorial Day, and the U.S. death toll is now expected to reach almost 170,000 by October. That's more than 50,000 additional deaths over the next few months.
We've already uncorked the genie. We got our wish, which was to end the home quarantine orders, and now we're seeing people treat that as if COVID-19 is no longer an issue, and that's far from the fact.
The CDC issued new guidelines, including bringing your own food and drinks to a cookout, waving instead of hugging people, sanitizing hands after using an ATM, and for travelers, taking the stairs instead of a hotel elevator. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says his state now has the lowest infection rate after being the epicenter earlier in the pandemic.
New Yorkers stepped up. They were smart. They were disciplined. They did what they had to do. And we have to stay there.
As part of that effort, New York's transit system is expanding a program using ultraviolet light to disinfect subway cars between service runs. Danya Backus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The coronavirus has infected more than 2 million people in the U.S. and killed at least 114,000. If you've been wondering if you're possibly carrying around COVID-19, you now have a chance to find out, as most of the state's tribes and several counties have already jumped in on community surveillance testing. Riverstone Health will offer it next weekend here in Billings. Health officials tell us they have 2,000 tests as of right now, but there could be more tests and testing days in the future. Public testing will take place from 9 a.m. until noon on Saturday, June 20th, next Saturday, in the upper parking lot at Metro Park. Community surveillance testing across the state is part of Governor Bullock's reopening plan for Montana. Now, a doctor's order is not needed. However, only people without COVID-19 symptoms and the ability to swirl a Q-tip-like swab into each nostril will be tested. That testing will help public health do a better job of preventing community spread of the virus. It's not an antibody test. It will only indicate if an individual has the virus at this time, not if they've had the virus in the past.
You would expect that the numbers of positive would be very small, but you wouldn't expect it to be zero. And so that does help because we know there's people who are asymptomatic who are positive for the disease. And so it kind of helps us get a little handle on what might be going on, and also, again, to get an early jump on contact tracing and prevention of further outbreaks.
Riverstone Health will notify all Yellowstone County participants of their test results. Again, that testing is scheduled for June 20th at Mentor Park from 9 a.m. till noon, or until those 2,000 tests run out. Well, it appears the state is seeing a bit of relief. Bighorn County health officials tell us there are no new confirmed tests today. 15 people have recovered. There are now just 8 confirmed active cases in that county. Elsewhere in the state, Montana confirming 10 new cases today. Gallatin County reported 18 recoveries, though, this afternoon. Between Gallatin and Bighorn County, the confirmed active cases across Montana have now been cut in half. And an update, state lab test results came back negative for 2 inmates at Montana Women's Prison. Those women tested presumptive positive on Tuesday. The Department of Corrections says the state will conduct more investigation due to the conflicting test results. Well, the heat is on, and that has many people looking forward to hopping into public pools now that they're open again. Q2's David J. has more on the Phase 2 COVID-19 guidelines for pools and what you need to know.
The guidelines at the pool are similar to away from the pool.
That 6 feet distance is important no matter where you are. I think one of the things to remember when people are exerting themselves, like when they're out in the park playing or they're swimming, is they breathe harder, which makes them expel their droplets further. So even a little more distance is good in those when people are exerting themselves.
Phase 2 limits pools to 75% capacity.
The pool has to be staffed so they can monitor the number of people who are in there to make sure they don't exceed their capacity limitations.
And those running the pools have a big part in helping limit the spread of coronavirus.
They're required to do sanitation related to cleaning the items that are shared, frequent restroom cleaning, using showers only for right when they first come in and out of the water, not for anything more than that.
Spraying down chairs, doorknobs, garbage cans, or anything is a high-touch area. I've watched them do that. They do a fantastic job.
Phase 2 guidelines state that the CDC has indicated that properly maintained pool water inactivates the virus.
In the pool, it's much less likely with the chlorine. The virus isn't a very stable virus anyway. It gets beat up pretty easily.
Viruses don't like UV light, so that being outside in the sun helps. They don't like chlorine, so that helps.
But they still say to use precautions.
It seems to be safe as long as we keep the standards up of staying physically distanced and washing. Wear facial coverings. I know it sounds strange, but it makes a lot of sense.
You want to keep your family group together. Your household group should stay close. The more we maintain those basic guidelines, the safer we'll all be and we can all enjoy more time outside.
In Billings, David J., MTN News.
Wading pools at Pioneer and Hawthorne Parks open Monday, also at 75% capacity. Spray grounds at North, Terry, Highland, and Castle Rock Parks will not open until Phase 3. All right, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. And Bob, that heat wave has arrived. Will it be sticking with us for the entire weekend?
Well, no, and that's the good news. It's going to come in, we'll start it today, and then half of it's over with. Let me show you how hot it got. Look at this. Over here in Billings, we got 95 degrees today. Sheridan, Wyoming also got to 95. The only difference is their old record was 93. So they have a brand new record now on the books. Everywhere else across the region, no new records, but boy, it was pretty toasty. Look at all those 90s out there. A few 80s here or there as well. So let me show you what we had here. In the Billings area, we were predicting 93, actually got up to 95, but the record is 96. Tomorrow we're forecasting 95. The record there is 98, and it looks like other places like Miles City, they're going up to 97, but it looks like their record's 103. I don't think they'll break that record tomorrow as well. But so here's what's going to happen. 95 in the Billings area Saturday. Cold front comes through, and then we drop back down into the 60s and 70s for the rest of next week. Russ?
All right, thank you, Bob. One man is dead. 2 people are in custody, and an investigation is underway after a homicide in central Billings overnight. Police were called to a home at 612 Terry Avenue just after 1 o'clock this morning, where they found a 36-year-old Billings man dead from an apparent stab wound. About an hour later, Yellowstone County Sheriff's deputy pulled over the suspect's vehicle in Lockwood and arrested 37-year-old Dustin Rodarte and 38-year-old Charlotte Rodarte. They were taken into custody on probation violations. At this time, no formal charges have been filed directly related to the homicide. Today, Governor Steve Bullock announced $8.7 million in federal grants will be allocated to education services across the state. Now, the allocation comes from the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, which is separate from the CARES Act. The Montana University System received $6.5 million. Well, the Montana Digital Academy received $230,000 to expand enrollment for students. Several colleges received funding, including Rocky Mountain College, which received $60,000. The Montana State Library also received $500,000. Grants were evaluated based on need. K-12 schools in Montana have already been allocated $41 million through the Federal Elementary and Secondary School Relief Fund. Now, World War II veteran Sidney Walton, who was present at the Super Bowl for the coin toss, is now traveling the nation. One of his stops on his tour, Bozeman yesterday, before heading to Helena this morning. MTN's John Miller ran into him yesterday and has the story.
I'm here with 101-year-old World War II veteran Sidney Walton, who is visiting all 50 states and all 50 governors, trying to bring to light the diminishing World War II veterans in the United States of America. Every place Walton stopped in Bozeman on Thursday night gave him the rightful hero's welcome that he deserves. This wasn't his first time in Montana. He stayed in Plentywood for a brief time during World War II.
Montana's a wonderful state.
Walton spent his time in India during World War II, and there was one big reason why he joined the Army almost a year before the U.S. got involved.
One reason is the fire hit her.
Now he wants to give everyone a chance to meet someone who served in World War II before it's too late.
You had a chance to meet Civil War veterans.
Yes.
And you never did.
Never did.
You regret that to this day?
Absolutely.
Walton is also visiting all 50 governors in all 50 states, a goal he set out on in 2018 to bring awareness to the small amount of World War II veterans remaining. However, he's met with some more famous people than governors, such as Miley Cyrus, John Legend, the Dalai Lama, and The Rock, just to name a few.
We have 20 more states to do, and we're going to finish it. We're thinking maybe in the fall.
Oh, thank you.
101 years old, and his patriotism remains strong.
I love this country.
In Bozeman, John Miller, MTN News.
And Walton was in Helena today. He met Mayor Wilmot Collins before heading to the state capitol, where he did get a chance to chat with Governor Steve Bullock. We certainly thank him for his service. There will be fireworks in Laurel this 4th of July, but this year there will be a bit of a catch. Of course, due to the pandemic, many of the typical celebrations have been canceled for the holiday, but the local fire department is stepping up to save the fireworks display. It'll be a little bit different, though, as we mentioned. Instead of overseeing one big show from Thompson Park this year, firefighters will be doing small individual shows from their own homes, and that'll start at 10:30 on the 4th of July. The fire department and the Laurel Chamber of Commerce invite people to step out of your house, look up, and you can even join in the festivities with your own fireworks. Just remember to be safe, and fingers crossed that all the celebrations will return next year. Well, still to come on tonight's Q2 10 o'clock news, U.S. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue made a stop in Montana today. We'll tell you why. Plus, Charlie Pride has seen it and done it all in his life, but his rise to fame came with plenty of struggles. We're going to hear from him. And in sports, a field of dreams. Scott updates us on the progress being made at Amen Park.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.